Now that we have the movie and Super Nintendo World Amusement Park, when can we expect a new Mario game?
そうですね、これは予告はできないんですけど、ダイレクトは2、3ヶ月に1回ぐらいありますから、そのうち楽しみにしててください。
Hello everyone, this is AndresRestart, and I just shared with you a quick little clip from a Variety magazine interview with Shigeru Miyamoto, where he was asked about the next Mario game announcement. Now, this interview happened back in 2023. It came out in April of 2023, right before the release of the Mario movie. It was part of the whole big Mario movie marketing campaign. But when I saw this clip back in 2023, I made a video about it talking about how Miyamoto was teasing the next Mario announcement. And if you go back to that video and you read through the comments, you'll see that a lot of people were really skeptical of what I was arguing here, saying they didn't really mean much, that it was a nothing burger. And if you take the words at face value, it doesn't necessarily promise anything. However, what I argued then, and what I will also argue now, you have to consider the context. You have to consider what Miyamoto would even be allowed to say, and you have to consider Nintendo's overall cross-promotional strategies. There was no circumstance where Miyamoto would be asked about the next Mario announcement and he would just confirm, oh yeah, we're going to announce the next Mario game in the next Nintendo Direct. He could never say that. The best thing he could have possibly said is literally what he said, alluding to paying attention to the next Nintendo Directs where there could be a Mario announcement, and literally the next Nintendo Direct, Nintendo announced Super Mario Bros. Wonder. It's been well documented that the Mario movie in 2023 led to increased sales overall for different Mario Universe games. And so Nintendo positioning a mainline new 2D Mario game to follow up the Mario movie back in 2023 just made sense from a business perspective. And of course, we were overdue for a new 2D Mario game, and it really made sense to benefit off of the excitement from the Mario movie. The Mario movie brought a whole new perspective and level of expression to the different Mario characters, and so Mario Wonder, while not a game based exactly on the movie, it was something that worked really well alongside the movie because it also demonstrated various Mario characters with a new level of expression. And so all this cross-promotion led to greater success for the movie and the game and other Mario games. I've talked about the cross-promotional strategies for Nintendo a lot, because, well, it's a really good indicator for what Nintendo has been working on. One of my favorite examples is how, for years, we talked about the likelihood of the Mario Odyssey team, or at least part of them, working on a Donkey Kong game that would come out around the time of the release of the Donkey Kong expansion to Super Nintendo World. And what literally happened last year? That. Super Nintendo World at Epic Universe alongside the Donkey Kong expansion opened in May, and Donkey Kong Bonanza came out in July. And that isn't to say that the game and the park were meant to open literally within 2 months of each other, but I do believe it was always a plan for them to happen within relative close proximity. The cross-promotion is a big deal, and it does give us insight into what Nintendo is planning and working on, because it's just good business. And so I say all that because we're now getting the next big Mario movie. And looking at this latest trailer that we got today, looking at the poster with Mario and Yoshi, what I see is something that screams a new 3D Mario announcement has to happen soon. Reminder, historically speaking, there has never been a new 3D console from Nintendo that has gone more than 2 holiday seasons without a major mainline 3D Mario release. So we've already went through one holiday season, 2025, we're now in 2026, and we are wondering about what's going to be announced for this year. If Nintendo does not announce a 3D Mario for this year, this would be something that has never happened before. But you have people predicting literally that this thing that has never happened before, not putting out a mainline new 3D Mario within the first 2 holiday seasons of a new console. And some people think this because we did just get Donkey Kong Bonanza last year, and it is made by the Odyssey team, we have been told that. But as I've talked about in various videos, if you look at the credits for Donkey Kong Bonanza, you will notice there are a lot of key members, as we talked about before, such as Koizumi, who were not that involved with the Donkey Kong Bonanza project. which would lead you to believe that there are other key members of the Odyssey team that have still been working on something else, which logically just makes sense because Mario Odyssey, made by the Mario Odyssey team, came out back in October of 2017. There was never a paid expansion with significant new content. We never saw a major new game from this team throughout the entire Switch era until the release of Donkey Kong Bonanza nearly 8 whole years later. Games in general do not take that long. This team has been well established in churning out games with some consistency for a long time. To think that they could only get out Donkey Kong Bonanza in 8 years does not make sense, especially when there are key members of that team that clearly have been working on something else. So yes, I still think there's been a major team for many years that has been working on a new Mario game, which is the case for every single generation of Nintendo. We shouldn't be expecting any different this time around, and considering the history of things, to think that there won't be a new Mario this year would literally be unprecedented. But when we also consider Nintendo's cross-promotional strategies and how we are getting a new Mario movie this year, I do think it is very reasonable to think that there are going to be elements of this movie that will inspire those to want to pick up a game that could be announced for this holiday. And so finally diving into the details here for what we've seen of this Mario Galaxy movie. The latest trailer, it's a nice trailer. I am very much excited for this movie, but I'm far more excited for the game, if that's not obvious. And there are some nice little details in this trailer. We do see Mario and Peach adventuring alongside each other very briefly. We do see the introduction of Yoshi, and he's portrayed in a very cute, timid way. But we also see that there's a relationship dynamic between Yoshi, Mario, and Luigi, and they become a party, and they're having a great time together. Yoshi kind of gets out of his shell, or eggshell in this case, and he becomes more expressive and jovial and energetic. We do see an interesting reference to Mario Odyssey with the Tyrannosaurus Rex, which is also funny in comparison to Yoshi. This scene also appears to be a reference to Yoshi's Island, as we also see both baby Mario and Luigi. And so that's all nice stuff. The main thing here is that finally Yoshi, as expected, has finally been confirmed for the movie. For those who did not know, the first Mario movie, at the end, they tease a Yoshi egg hatching, so we expected for a while that Yoshi would be playing a role in the next Mario movie, and that also is what led us to believe that there would be a release for a Mario Galaxy 2 remaster, dating all the way back to 2023, because there would be another movie featuring Yoshi, putting out Galaxy 2 that also features Yoshi. Makes a lot of sense, which is exactly what has happened. Another example of Nintendo's cross-promotional strategies leading us to predict what is actually going to occur. But really, it's this poster that just screams a new 3D Mario announcement has to happen soon. You see Mario, you see Yoshi, you see them together, Mario on top of Yoshi. A modern depiction of that classic relationship from Super Mario World where Mario would ride Yoshi. But this time it looks epic and grand, and it looks like they're about to set out on an incredible intergalactic journey. Now, while we did not get any other 3D Mario projects from the Odyssey team during the Switch era outside of Odyssey, we did get a little bit of some new 3D Mario experience in Bowser's Fury, a little bit of an expansion added to the re-release of 3D World on Switch 1. And Bowser's Fury brought in open world Mario gameplay. We had never seen a true open world Mario game before. A lot of people seem to get confused about what open world means. No, it does not mean just a big area where you explore. It means a continuous world without loading breaks, where you have a lot of openness as to how you can go about exploration. And that was Bowser's Fury. And while there was not Yoshi in that adventure, there was Plessy, who is very Yoshi-like, which allowed Mario to swiftly glide through all the waters of Lake Lapcat. And it's been discussed, and I do agree with this, that this gives us some indication for where the 3D Mario team is headed. To put out something like this, something with its own unique gameplay, I do think is insight into the direction they're headed in. I mean, you look at the sales of so many different games throughout the Switch era from Nintendo. What Nintendo likely learned throughout the Switch era is that when you go bigger and it's executed well, you are rewarded with greater sales, greater success. They went back to the more Mario 64 Sunshine style of a Mario game, where you have these big open areas, not open worlds, but big areas to explore, that still have the Mario Galaxy style 3D world style levels, but fitting within as sub-levels to these different worlds you explore. But this format, a more open, adventurous format, led to the most successful 3D Mario ever. Mario Odyssey has sold nearly 30 million copies. It's one of the best-selling games on Switch, and this is an especially big deal because finally 3D Mario is shown to have more sales potential than 2D Mario. Historically speaking, 2D Mario has generally sold better than 3D Mario, probably because of its roots that it reach a larger audience and it's more simple and more accessible to more people. But Mario Odyssey broke through that barrier. And it wasn't just Mario that did this. We saw Nintendo finally made an open world Zelda game in Breath of the Wild that was historic, even greater sales. Or you look at Kirby and the Forgotten Land, finally a 3D Kirby game, and it became the best-selling Kirby game of all time. Or now you look at the recent release Donkey Kong Bonanza, finally Nintendo goes back to Donkey Kong in a big way with a new 3D adventure with large, awesome worlds to explore, and early numbers show that it's selling extremely well. It's going to be one of the strongest selling Switch 2 titles, and so it shows when Nintendo goes for the ambition, goes for the more big, open, expressive adventure, and executes well, they're rewarded with people actually wanting to pick up the game more so than usual. And so yes, I think there is plenty of reason to believe by looking at what Nintendo's put out there in terms of games and just looking at the success of the games, we should be expecting the next Mario game on more powerful hardware where they should be trying something even more ambitious is going to be more open and grand, and perhaps it would make sense to reintroduce a proper mount. As we've been theorizing for years, Yoshi. Which also factors into all the cross-promotional stuff we've been thinking about, how there would be a reintroduction to Yoshi with Mario Galaxy 2, and now they have the Mario Galaxy movie, which also was featuring Yoshi heavily. There's also Yoshi and the Mysterious Book coming out, but I think this all ties into an eventual new Mario game we're going to get for Switch 2 that will have Yoshi playing a significant role. And so seeing this poster, seeing how awesome it looks, it just gets me thinking, whoa, I want to play a game like that. And I am sure I am not the only one that feels that way when you see this. And so with all this in mind, I am left with an optimism that a 3D Mario announcement is going to happen soon. Now, if you've gone this far into the video and you find yourself enjoying my videos and you haven't subscribed already, I do have this goal to reach 60,000 subscribers soon, so if you do enjoy my content, I would very much appreciate it. But I want to clear up a few things if some people might be wondering about what I'm getting at here. I do ultimately think we are going to see a 3D Mario announcement this year, and honestly I do think it makes the most sense for it to come out this year. Of course, it is possible that perhaps the game is simply not ready yet, which I think would be very unfortunate and would certainly go against history. But I still feel really good about it getting announced, and even if it doesn't come out this year, I feel like it would probably come out relatively soon. If they announce it this year, maybe it comes out by the end of the fiscal year, March of 2027. There is also the belief of a Luigi's Mansion 4 getting announced pretty soon too. We've heard about this Luigi's Mansion amiibo. Next Level Games, the developer for the Luigi's Mansion series, is overdue for a game, so it feels like a pretty safe bet to think that Luigi's Mansion 4 is close to announcement and could be coming out this year. Now, some people might think that a Luigi's Mansion 4 could get in the way of a 3D Mario release, and I don't honestly think that's the case. I do think they probably wouldn't put them in the same month, but I could see a scenario where 3D Mario comes out November and Luigi's Mansion 4 comes out October. Like, I don't think that's really that crazy. We did see that Nintendo launched the Switch 2 with Mario Kart World in June and Donkey Kong Bonanza in July. To me, it would be a very similar thing to put two Mario Universe titles with very different gameplay in back-to-back months. That is very conceivable. But then when you also consider that we're supposed to get the 10th generation of Pokemon this year, and that would probably come out in November, I do feel like perhaps something has to give. We are supposed to be getting some other major releases this year, such as Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave and the Dust Bloods, and I also assume there's going to be some other stuff. We're hearing about Monolith making an announcement soon, so where does it all fit? How does it all fit? As we saw last year, there were multiple games that came out in a short time frame. Basically, like in a 9 to 10 week period, we saw several major releases from Nintendo: Mario Galaxy 1+2, Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment, Kirby Air Riders, Pokemon Legends ZA, and Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. We could be looking at something like that this time around again, for the holiday of 2026. Now, some people might argue against that because we're supposedly getting Grand Theft Auto this year. And that is being talked up by many. Many people look at it as a huge historic release that's going to be industry changing, that's going to have so much attention on it. And so many companies may be concerned about releasing their own games around that period of time. And perhaps that could be the case, but I personally don't think it's going to have that significant of an impact on Nintendo, because while I do think the next Grand Theft Auto is going to come to Nintendo Switch 2 eventually, I do not think it's happening this year. And I'm sure most people are going to agree with me on that. We've heard rumors that GTA is coming to Switch 2, and while I do think it makes sense, I don't think they're going to have it ready at the same time as the other platforms, because Switch 2 did just come out. They probably were not developing with Switch 2 in mind from the beginning, and so they're probably going to need more time to get that version ready. And so assuming this Grand Theft Auto game comes out this year, it's not coming out for Switch 2. Nintendo's still going to need to put out games for their own platform, so I don't really think it's going to impact things that much in terms of games they release for the hardware. I know a lot of Nintendo fans don't care for Grand Theft Auto. I'm not that big of a Grand Theft Auto fan, and let me be clear, this is no slight to Grand Theft Auto. I acknowledge it as an incredible series, and actually with the next one, I am interested, especially because it's based off my hometown. But my point is simply that I just don't see it impacting sales for first-party Nintendo games. So I do still feel like Nintendo's going to come out strong this holiday with not just one game per month, but multiple in a short time frame as they've done for many holidays, including the one that just happened in 2025. But something else I want to clear up on here. While I don't think the next Mario game is going to be called Super Mario Galaxy 3, I do think there's going to be elements of the next Mario game that will certainly remind people of the Galaxy games and the Galaxy movie, and vice versa. There are rumors that Nintendo has explored around ideas with exploring different universes with Mario, so that does kind of feel like perhaps an expansion to the idea of what happens with Galaxy. But consider this for a moment. Look at the poster again. We see this giant planet, which is where we see Rosalina in the first trailer, but you can clearly see a round spherical object that you can explore around, very Galaxy-like, but on a grander scale. And I remember an interview with, I believe, Miyamoto about Mario Galaxy, how you could essentially create a vast world just by scaling up the size of a sphere within a game. And so imagine if in the next Mario game they do incorporate some of this concept of these planets that have their own gravity, but they go on a grander scale, where they're so big they can function as their own world. But perhaps there could be other planets like this that are in close proximity. I honestly think that could be a really cool concept here. Like, just imagine what we're seeing with this poster, being able to explore that in a game, Mario running on Yoshi, because clearly there's some vast expanses there, there's a lot of running around to do, but you could still, in theory, find ways to get off that planet and move on to other larger sized planets as well. With the Switch 2 hardware, they would be able to pull off something like this, and it would certainly be very cool. It would certainly be an interesting concept that would be a new take on a lot of the Galaxy ideas, but also still continuing in this direction of more adventurous, open-style Mario games, while relating to the movie, but not being quite the movie either. I've theorized the next Mario game will be called Super Mario Universe, reminding you of the Galaxy games in the movie, but not being them, still being something else. Anyways, this poster, this movie, definitely gets me amped and excited for the next Mario game. But what do you all think? Let me know in the comments below. This is AndresRestart. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I will see you all really soon. Take care. Bye.